This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, it's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan, co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms and their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds is here as we've got an abrupt retirement to talk about. This happened about 10 o'clock last night. Devante Parker has decided, this has happened a couple times, I feel like, with the Eagles. Marquise Goodwin a couple of years ago, they traded for him, and then he decided that he wasn't going to play that season, so they had to return him back to the 49ers. They keep trying to find someone to play this slot, Adam Caplan, and it doesn't seem that it ever works out. Now, I don't know that Parker was the answer here, but they are going to have to find a new solution, I guess, because it will not be Parker.
Yeah, by the way, he's not a slot receiver. He can't play slot. Devante Parker's strictly an outside receiver, so that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for a slot. That's the last thing they need is they needed an outside receiver. He was signed specifically to back up A.J. Brown, so that job is open. Now, we'll get into sort of the timing, which was interesting. Him surprising is not a surprise. Him retiring is not surprising at all, knowing his injury history. The timing is definitely surprising. We'll get into. I'll explain in a minute why it's surprising. But so what this does, Mike, and they don't have, remember the season doesn't have to start till it doesn't start till September. They don't have to do anything now, but it does now. We started OTAs. It gives them a time to look at Johnny Wilson. I get that he's a rookie and he's an outside receiver. They'll look at him. Austin Watkins, who gave some guaranteed money to. Joseph Ngata, who was a star at training camp, didn't make it. Big-bodied receiver. Jacob Harris, who they're really excited about, is a pretty good athlete, who's played tight end receiver in his career. Shaquan Davis, who's a big receiver, 6'4+, formerly of the Saints, who they gave some guaranteed money to. So what this does is it gives these guys a chance to impress the coaches. If the Eagles don't do anything now at outside receiver, they could get a deeper look at these guys. So. And then they've got, of course, the mandatory camp. So, look, the timing is odd, Mike. The way it works in retirements, there are 4 to 5 periods of the year that players retire. They let the club know before the season starts, this is going to be my last year. The players will tell club coaches and front office people that. Or they decide after, like Jason Kelsey told his teammates, or in the season he was going to retire probably, and then he finalized it by telling them before the Tampa Bay game. Or you tell the team before free agency starts so they can replace you. You tell them right before the draft, or you do it right after the draft when they draft your replacement. And you go, oh boy, I guess I'm not going to have a job anymore. So it is really odd, Mike, to do it right before OTAs start because, Mike, OTAs are not mandatory. You don't have to show up. You can't find a player. It would behoove them to come because he's with a new team. But he did retire. I mean, he let them know earlier on Monday that he was not playing. So, yeah, the time is a little bit odd from that standpoint, but him surprising. Devante Parker at 31, Mike, he clearly was near the end of his career. He just doesn't run well anymore. Not that he was a speedster. But, look, Julio Jones is out there. That didn't work out so well. I mean, he looked like he was on his last legs. It's just not a really good list, Mike. I'm looking at my free agency file. I go through it. There are a ton of slot receivers. Eagles don't need that. People are saying Hunter Renfrow, he could only play the slot. That's a good player, by the way. He's probably the best receiver out there, but he doesn't really do it. Michael Thomas is a possession receiver. He doesn't run that well, but he's a supreme possession receiver. He's more of an inside guy. I'm looking at Mike. There's really no one out there. Byron Pringle's a guy who's more of a returner / number 4 receiver. Richie James, who the Eagles like. Richie James told me 2 years ago he was either going to sign with the Giants or the Eagles. I met him at the Super Bowl, and he told me that, and he chose to sign with the Giants. There's just really no one out there. Robbie Anderson, who played at Temple, who could run. He could play on the outside, but Laquan Treadwell's out there. I know Jeff Mosher's a fan of. Jeff's probably listening to this. He probably is laughing right now. He is, though. But that's it, Mike. And you mentioned Marquise Goodwin. By the way, he's still out there. Yes, he is, and he's a track star. Like, he's a speed guy. He could run now, but he does not have size.
Yeah, Hardman, Mecole Hardman was another guy we were taking a look at. I don't know if you mentioned him.
Yeah, him too. Yep.
Hardman. Yep. I mean, so would you classify this as like an like they're not all that broken up by this?
Well, Mike, I hate to say they were counting on him. The contract, which was the veteran minimum, there was a significant amount of money. I should say significant. There was a decent amount of money, just under $3 million, that the Patriots owed him, and the Eagles paid the rest of it. So the Eagles are only going to get a cap rebate of $1.2 million. That doesn't matter. The Eagles are great with the cap. They could move whatever excess money they have after the season to next season. So it's really not a big deal. But they just don't have any experience now behind A.J. Brown. That is a problem. Again, the season does not start till September. They could look at these kids. Really cannot wait to see Johnny Wilson when I go to the mandatory camp. Heard a lot about him from other teams who scouted him. I know the Eagles they find him intriguing. As we reported right after the draft, he's not playing tight end no matter what's out there, and he actually confirmed that to the media. So they just don't have that guy right now, but they have guys that could try behind A.J. Brown, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, as we were talking about earlier, is that you don't have that guy. Like last year when A.J. Brown was not able to play in the playoff game, they just didn't have anybody to fill into that spot, and now you're kind of back to square one there with that outside backup wide receiver. So Devante Parker, he retires, and now the Eagles need to figure out their plan to replace him. All right, let's take a look at it. We saw the schedule come out. Now that we've had a chance to kind of digest this a little bit, let's see how they match up in these first 4 games of the season, because it's interesting. You have 4 teams, Adam. They're all NFC teams here, so these are all conference matchups. And
in fact, not Mike. This schedule. I have a lot of respect for the league, and Mike North, who's the chief schedule maker. I'm on his media conference call every year, but could you please explain to me why they're playing 3 NFC South teams in a row? That just makes no sense. I have a real hard time with that one. That was the odd schedule, Kirk. Eagles have a great schedule, by the way. If you look at their schedule and how these teams are comprised and how people around the league see these teams, it's a pretty good schedule. But yeah, we're going to break these up into quarters here. We'll do this on this show and the 3 future shows here. As we get through the next couple weeks here. But week 1, Moshe and I, Jeff and I did this, we did the first half of the schedule on Monday's show, Thursday's show, we're doing the second half. People kind of hating on us, like, oh, you guys are so negative, you're giving the other team so much love. Should we just say these teams stink? I mean, who are we kidding? By the way, let me give you an example, Mike. So how much is the public on Green Bay? That line opened up at 4.5. It's now done at 1 or 1.5, depending on which book you're looking at. And this is technically, I know it's ridiculous to call it a home game, but it is. It's one of the Eagles' home games. We'll see if they have any kind of advantage. Nobody knows in Sao Paulo, Brazil. But see, one of the reasons why I'm very bullish on the Packers, Mike, everybody's back on offense. They were the only team last year, the Packers, to not have a vested veteran receiver, which is really unheard of, and it actually worked out. Jordan Love was fantastic. Got off to a slow start, but no quarterback played better than he did in the second half, and he had 36 combined touchdowns. Josh Jacobs is their new running back. All their receivers are back. Their tight ends are back. Couple small changes to the offensive line. Matt LaFleur is back. Not only is he back, he's their play caller. He did a really good job with Jordan Love. Their defense, which completely underachieved last season, got hot late, Mike, as you know. They dismantled the Cowboys on the road, but they're changing their defense. Joe Barry's out. Jeff Hafley's in. Going to run a 43 front. The former Boston College head coach. They brought in Javon Bullard, their second-round safety, maybe the best safety for this draft. Pure safety we're talking about. Xavier McKinney, who the Eagles made an offer to. He signed with Green Bay. Look, we'll see how this defense is. This is the first year that they're doing this. They haven't played a 4-3 probably in a couple decades, but I can't wait for this game, Mike. This is going to be a phenomenal game in Week 1.
Yeah, that one is, we talk about a lot. This could be an early Week 1 game that we look back at and say who got home field advantage or who was finished higher in the seeding here, Philadelphia and Green Bay. I think you said on Friday's show you like Green Bay to win that over Detroit, right?
I'm going to pick them. I picked Detroit last year. They were my breakout team back in last May. In fact, I went on your show in Sports Grid. I remember last May. I said if you do the NFL future bets, get on the Lions now. They're going to be the hype team, and that was an understatement. My goodness, were they the hype team? The league. I was here on Mike North's call last year after the draft. He talked about how much the league was bullish on the Lions as a breakout team, and they got a lot of national TV games. So And by the way, the Texans are their team this year. They went from, as we talked about Friday, Mike, no primetime games last year, 16 straight one Eastern games, which is absurd, weeks 1 through 16, which is really absurd. If the league was telling you how much they hated them, they weren't bashful. The schedule tells you. They don't have to say anything. The schedule just told you. They didn't think they were going to be very good. Well, everyone got it wrong, including the league and yours truly. I actually liked the under last year, 5.5.
Remember Green Bay, by the way, Josh Jacobs' new 4-year deal. He's there as well. So that's what's new with the Packers. Then Atlanta, me and Josh were going back and forth on this the other day. I like Atlanta because of Cousins to win that division. I don't know, Tampa Bay, they brought a lot of guys back here, but they won 9 games last year. Can Atlanta get to 10? Is Cousins worth 2 more wins for them? We'll see.
Actually, they were 7-9. We're 7-10. Actually, they had 3 straight 7-10 records, if I'm not mistaken, with Arthur Smith, which what got him canned. But you mentioned Kirk Cousins now. Oh boy, he's healthy. He looks good. He told the media that he's ready to roll. Come back the torn Achilles. They have a brand new coaching staff here. Zach Robinson, first-time play caller, coming over from the Rams. Robinson was actually a quarterback. I remember Paul Gunther telling me, who's now an assistant with the Cowboys when he's defensive coordinator for the Bengals. Zach Robinson was a quarterback, a backup quarterback for them. So now he's a offensive coordinator and play caller. He's going to run his version of Sean McVay's offense. Let's call it like it is. They're supremely talented on offense, Mike. Not very talented on defense. They overachieved last season with Ryan Nielsen as their defensive coordinator. I think they're going to keep the 34 front. And then Raheem Morris is their head coach. Second time around as a head coach. They know him very well in that building. Their pass rush isn't very good. They don't have a good outside second corner. This is a game the Eagles have to be favored. I don't know if they've done the week 2 lines yet, but they should be, to me, a 3 to 5 point favorite. But I'm telling you, now with Darnell Mooney at receiver and a real play caller here in Zach Robinson, who and Kyle Pitts, by the way, who's real healthy. This will be a test for the revamped Eagles defense.
And Atlanta is week 2 Monday night here in Philadelphia. And, of course, you can hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. You mentioned it, 3 straight NFC South. The second one, you're going down to the Caesars Superdome, and that's a Saints team that added Derek Carr a year ago, so he'll be in that system. But he's got a new offensive coordinator now. Another
West Coast offense. Okay. One of the Kubiak boys. This is Clint Kubiak. First time calling offense. Now, he'll run his version of Kyle Shanahan's West Coast offense. Was like Sean McVay's is not like Kyle's. And Kyle's is more old school, like his dad Mike, and that's the kind of offense that they're going to run with Clint Kubiak. And obviously, Gary Kubiak was a backup quarterback for the Broncos under Mike Shanahan, and of course, John Elway was the starter. They cut Michael Thomas. They're going to be heavy 12 personnel, which means 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, and 1 back. Their first-round pick, Fuaga, should be the left tackle. They don't know about Ryan Ramczyk, who's coming off of a major knee issue. They know he'll be able to play this season, but they don't know when he'll be ready. They run a 43 front. They're a very average football team, Mike. They have a lot of talent in the secondary. They just underachieve. And Derek Carr is supremely talented. He never seems to play up to that talent, Mike. He's been an underachiever. For whatever reason, very inconsistent, very risk-averse. Well, he's like here in Philly, Jalen Hurts is super. I don't know. He's not only is he not risk-averse, he's super aggressive throwing it. Derek Carr is not. Derek Carr's got a great arm. He's a pretty good athlete. He refuses to run, by the way. This is their last year of guaranteed money. He would not have been back, but he's back, fully guaranteed salary here, and this is a game the Eagles clearly should be favorite, and I don't see them having a problem winning this one.
All right, that one is on the road at New Orleans, week number 3. Let's go to week number 4. We're taking a look at the Eagles' first 4 opponents and kind of giving you a little inside look at those. This is Tampa Bay. You went to Tampa last year on Monday night and beat them, and then went to Tampa Monday night in the playoffs and just absolutely didn't show up and got beat and eliminated. And here we are, one really different team in Philadelphia. Tampa Bay almost said, let's run it back.
Yeah, and what's happened here, Mike, is that a lot has changed with Tampa. So Dave Canales, their outstanding offensive coordinator, is now the head coach of the Panthers. So now they've got to kind of get through Liam Cohen. Oh, by the way, he's a Sean McVay disciple, yet another one off the Sean McVay coaching tree. He's going to see the reason why they brought Liam Cohen in, who worked with Baker Mayfield briefly for about 5 weeks with the Rams 3 years ago. He could keep the same scheme, so Mayfield doesn't have to learn yet another offense. He had to learn the Rams offenses, in a brief period of time. Then the Buccaneers offense last season, the Panthers before that, Cleveland before that. So they're able to keep continuity. They were able to retain not only Mayfield but Mike Evans for a couple more years. Their offensive line, Graham Barton is going to play center, their first-round pick out of Duke. It's not often, Mike, you draft a center in the first round. He could have played guard or right tackle, but he's going to play center for them. They got a pretty good line, by the way. Rachaad White's a pretty good back. He's just not explosive. Where I think the Eagles could make their hay, Mike, if they could protect, is they're not very good at corner. They're just not. They traded their best corner, Carlton Davis, who came off of an off year to Detroit. Jamel Dean, the Eagles picked on last year in the first game, or he was hurt last season quite a bit. They're great at safety. Andrew Winfield got a monster contract. Jordan Whitehead's pretty good opposite him. Zion McCollum's the other starting corner, who, by the way, the Eagles wanted badly in that draft in 22, but they could not make a trade to go get him. Very young pass rushing group, decent front with Vita Vea, actually pretty good, and Kalijah Kancey. It's a defense that's beatable. We saw the Eagles handle them in that first game, and obviously the Eagles were shelved their former self in the playoffs. Nothing went right because the Eagles were kind of packed it in for that game. So this is a fun game, Mike. This game in Week 4, Mike, which is, by the way, 1 Eastern at Tampa, and it'll be warm. I'm sure it will be warm, that game. This is a fun game here. Eagles should be favored, and I know Todd Bowles is probably feeling pretty good about himself and their club after dismantling the Eagles in the playoffs, but let's face it, 2 new coordinators in Philly. It's good. The Eagles will be way better than the team they face in the playoffs. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Adam Caplan, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. Before we let you run here, who do you like in the NFC South? Are you a Falcons, Bucks, or do you like New Orleans? I guess Carolina's kind of out of the mix, right?
Yeah. They only had did they have 1 win last season? 2, 1, whatever they had. So, yeah, I look. By the way, the odds makers have Atlanta winning the division at 9 wins. Their over total is 9. I'm still going to pick Tampa. I get it. Atlanta finally gets a quarterback. Their play calling should be better. Arthur Smith did not do a very good job as a head coach play caller. One of the big reasons why he's out. And I'm going to back Tampa. Baker Mayfield played pretty well. Terrible against the Eagles in the first game, and he wasn't really tested in the second game. But look, the good thing about the Eagles' schedule is, think about it this way. Look at all the teams that they don't face this season, some of the elite teams. They don't face the Chiefs. They don't face the Niners. They don't face, call the Texans what you want. They don't face the Texans. They do face, though, the Bengals and the Ravens. They don't face the Bills. They don't face the Dolphins. So that's a pretty favorable schedule to me, Mike, when you really look at it. But, hey, they got to play the games, and we'll see what happens.
All right, and, of course, OTAs continuing on up in Philadelphia as well. And, of course, the Eagles, when the news happens, right here on Football at 4, and the guys at the Inside the Birds podcast with fresh material. Check out their YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can get the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms. Adam, thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Adam Caplan, everybody. Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.